We're filming.
Yeah.
You didn't go in the bin, but fuck it, Exorcist. The Exorcist is a movie often considered one of the most frightening and unsettling ever made. Something I guess you could contribute to the seasoned acting chops of the various people who starred in the film, but could also be just as equally attributed to the many, many guns the director hid around the set and would fire into the air at random.
Alright, to start with, who the hell was this director?
This director was one William Friedkin, an old school directing type who was known for, well, one, his his eccentricity, as we'll no doubt cover in a moment, and the fact that he was really into guerrilla style filmmaking. And it's one of those things where, depending on how good the director is, can have wildly different results. For example, the first Terminator movie contained a lot of guerrilla filmmaking because James Cameron just didn't have the budget to get the permits he needed for the shots that he wanted. Yeah. And we've discussed that in detail in a previous video, which will no doubt be linked below if the editor can find it, because I can't remember which one it was. We talk about Terminator way too much.
Just link all the Terminator videos.
You know what? Do your own fucking research. We talked about The Exorcist today. And then on the other hand, you have The Room, which also features many examples of guerrilla filmmaking. Not because Tommy was so needed money, because he had tons of it apparently, it's because he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. I don't think there's anyone out there who's going to say, yeah, I think The Room can top Terminator in quality. Friedkin is one of those old school type directors who couldn't really be told what to do because now fuck it, I know what to do, I'm a director.
So do you have an example of something he would do without permission?
Yes, we can refer to The Exorcist, the topic of today's video for this one, and that is a scene where the actress Ellen Burstyn, I think it is, she's pushed back by her demonically empowered daughter, played by Linda Blair, and and the scene called for her to be violently thrown back as if projected by some mystical demonic force. Obviously, that's what happens in the movie. And to achieve this effect, what they do is they tied a wire around the actress and they hid it down the back of her clothes and they fed it under a nearby curtain. Yeah. And they wanted to achieve the effect by yanking on the wire as she threw herself backwards to give the illusion that, oh my god, woo. Yeah. The problem was freaking out, looking it's not good enough. There's not enough oomph on this, so without the actress's knowledge or permission, he went to the guy in charge of pulling the wire and told him, really let her have it for this one. It sounds funny until you have you watched this scene or do you remember it all?
Vaguely.
Okay, well, when you edit this, you will watch that scene back and you'll see, you go, oh my god, because she goes Mach 3. Not only did Friedkin leave that shot in the movie because it was one that was the most realistic, he ended up giving the actress permanent spinal injury.
I'm not surprised.
Permanent spinal injury. She laughed about it years later because she didn't have a fucking choice. But holy fucking shit! And that's just one example of the kind of things Friedkin would do because he valued one, practical effects, and two, realistic reactions from his actors.
These days, people just do visual effects and just think, oh, we'll do it in post.
And speaking of that, you do have a shot in The Exorcist that was cut out because they didn't have CGI.
Yeah.
And it ended up being one of the most iconic shots in the entire film. It's probably the one most people remember. And it's the one of the girl doing a crab walk down the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Which was accomplished by, I believe, a contortionist who did it. And then she was held aloft by some wires to make sure she didn't, fall down the stairs and break her neck. Yeah. And Friedkin didn't like that he could see the wires, and they didn't have the technology at the time to remove them. So he just left that shot out, and then in remasters and re-releases, they put that shot back in with the wires removed. That's one of the most famous shots in the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember that. That or the head turn.
Yeah, which was a practical effect again, and you can kind of tell, because the head just turns it turns just a little bit too cleanly.
Who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit.
Well, like many other fact theme videos, we always have more than one example.
Yeah, there's always that extra little, just dollop of relish on the side so you can enjoy alongside the main facts. And of course, that wasn't the only thing Friedkin did that traumatized an actress. And poor little Linda Blair did not have a good time making this movie because there was a scene in this movie that many have argued is the most unsettling in the entire film. That has nothing to do with the titular exorcism or the demonic possession, and it is where little Linda Blair is taken to a hospital and she is given a arteriogram. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but it's a medical procedure that involves putting a big-ass needle directly into one of your major arteries. And Friedkin didn't like the idea of, using effects or, camera trickery.
Oh, no.
to not achieve this effect. So he brought in an actual team of medical professionals to perform it for real.
Oh no.
I'm not sure, I don't think they actually put the needle into her neck, but they did use an actual medical team who were familiar with the procedure.
Okay.
To help achieve the effect.
Okay,
and they
so
really
not actually put it in.
And they really did have little Linda Blair strapped to it. So you have to be fully strapped down and fully conscious, while an actual team of medical professionals prepared her for this very real and very frightening procedure that grown adult men would burst into tears when they had to experience. As an idea of how realistic this scene was in regards to his portrayal of that procedure, Friedkin would proudly note in later interviews that for many years after the release of The Exorcist, they would show that scene as part of training in hospitals. There was also other little things that he did, there's a scene where little Linda Blair is being possessed by the demon, is being thrown backwards and forwards by the demon, and to accomplish that they just had a harness around her waist and pulled it backwards and forwards. But I think the harness broke halfway through one of the shots.
Oh no.
And Friedkin didn't yell cut. He just kept it going. So when she's screaming for help, please get me out of this thing, I don't know what's going on, that's real. And before we move on, we can't ignore the fact that shots where the actor actually got injured and made it into the movie is very ripe, fertile ground for fact videos online. Yeah. We've talked before about the one from Lord of the Rings, and that is Viggo Mortensen kicking the helmet, broke his toe. We know that one. And there's one from Hot Rod where Andy Samberg goes on that little ramp.
Yeah.
He actually broke his leg doing that. We talked about that in another video. There is the one from Jaws where Quint, I think it is, gets eaten by the shark and he's been flung from side to side. The actor broke his leg during that scene when the mechanism holding him in place malfunctioned. So his screams of pain are real. Bring it back to Lord of the Rings, just mentioned the other famous one, which is the Uruk-hai throwing the knife at Viggo Mortensen, when he deflects it with a sword. Yeah. That's real. It was a real knife. The guy playing the Uruk-hai was a trained knife thrower. Yeah. And he was supposed to throw it next to Aragorn. It was a real knife. Obviously, he was a trained guy, he's going to throw it next to you. But the Uruk-hai makeup made him, his eyes were a bit blurry. So he threw it directly at Viggo Mortensen, who's went ting!
Okay, Karl, what is this about guns?
So as you might imagine, given everything I've said about William Friedkin today, he's not exactly one to settle for a subpar reaction from one of his actors. And in particular, he was said to be very annoyed by how fake looks of surprise looks on an actor's face. It's they always look bad because you can tell it's not a genuine look of shock or surprise, because that is an instinctual action that is hard-coded into you on the most base genetic level. You can't pretend to be surprised. Just like it's very difficult to pretend to laugh.
That immediately reminds me of uni days when I used to star in videos.
Because obviously you all just star in each other's movies and just do whatever.
And we were doing a horror and I had to scream, do a fake scream, and you see me at the start of the clip smiling.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's really difficult to feign
I can't do it.
Just shock, fear or anything like that. And obviously kudos and props to any actor or actress who can do that. So what Friedkin would do is he would hide guns around set, and if he needed an actor to look shocked, he'd just fire the gun into the air, film them, and then use that reaction.
Genuine.
So someone the reaction in the shot where someone reacts to a loud bang or something that's legitimate, he shot a gun into the air. And you know what you're thinking, Karl, was it a real gun? And it was a real gun, but they were loaded with blanks. Something Friedkin has always been keen to point out when he gets asked about this.
Yeah.
And it's also really funny as well because obviously it's one of those facts about The Exorcist that people are is it true? Because it sounds like one of those things that is plausible enough to be true, but also could be complete bullshit, and everyone just takes as facts. It's repeated so much. So Friedkin gets asked about it a lot. Yeah. And my favourite thing about these interviews is he always gets annoyed about it. Because he says, well, one, there were blanks. Well, it's still a fucking gun. It makes the same noise, but whatever. And he goes, also, I didn't invent that directorial technique. I was just doing what my contemporaries did because I learned about it when I was studying film. So I want to know, what teacher taught him that? What teacher taught him? Do you need to get a genuine reaction from your actors? Boom, 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 just empty the clip into the air. It's what the fuck? Who taught you this? It's lo-fi as fuck, but you can't argue with the results. But then again, he also nearly disabled one of his actresses and traumatized another one, so go fuck yourself, I guess. So, rough with the smooth. Right, so this video, in a roundabout way, has been about a director who was just dead set on getting a genuine, honest reaction from his actors. And we also briefly mentioned The Room, which I would say is the opposite of that. So in that vein, let's take a step back from genuine, like realistic reactions and go for just the worst reactions and acting in films that we like. And we can start with The Room, and I think we've covered it many times before, but like, do you have any like just favourite moments, just really bad acting from that film? Yeah, from any moment in that film. Mine has always got to be just, hi doggy. It's so bad. And he dubbed that line over, which means that he did a take, thought it was bad, redubbed it, and thought the dub was better. It's like, how bad was the original take if that's what like made it in?
How much is it?
It'll be $18.
Here you go. Keep the change. Hi, doggy.
You're my favorite customer.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
One of my favourite bits is when he's on the rooftop with Mark. And Mark talks about... what is it he talks about?
He's like a friend of his getting viciously beaten.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, he talks about that, and then Johnny goes,
What a story.
What a story.
So good. So good. So, you know, like any other examples of bad acting that you just absolutely adore?
I think another maybe obvious one is, I can't remember what film it was. It's like some, like Gremlins or something like that.
Is it the one from Troll 2?
Troll, yeah, Troll 2. Well, that person's being eaten by the trolls, and that guy is
Nisha,
like,
please do the line. It's so good. It's so good.
they're eating her. And then they're going to eat me.
It's so good.
Oh my God.
And he zooms right on his face like, oh, they're going to eat me too. Oh my God. It's like, he got paid.
Yeah.
Fair play to that actor. He got fucking paid. But holy shit, that's some bad acting.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Oh my God!
But yeah, there's another one that I really like. I think there's a man on a beach and he's reading a letter. I think his wife might have left him. And he just stands there going, oh God, oh man, oh God, oh man.
Oh, I've heard this one
the
as
camera
well.
pans around.
Oh man, oh God, oh man, oh man, oh God. It's so good.
Oh man. Oh God. Oh man. Oh God. Oh man. Oh God. Oh man.
Yeah, they're low-budget films where like you're not hiring good actors, but then you just have shit like Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, which I think Red Letter Media pointed this out, where he says like, "Are you a teacher? Part-time?" And in the trailer, like there'll be a comparison clear. The trailer, the reading is bad, but it's acceptable, and obviously it's Harrison Ford. Like he gives a shit. You don't tell Harrison Ford to do another take, but then in the actual film, they redid the shot, but the take's worse, which means they brought him back in to re-record the line, and he does a worse line reading. And again, like I'm not going to say Harrison Ford's bad, he's a fantastic actor, but I like the idea that they redid the line, because in the trailer it's so bad, and he did it worse, and that's the take they used. It's so good. Part-time.
A teacher?
Part-time.
A teacher?
Part-time.